Welcome to the Inspire series. Happy Friday, everyone. This is so fun to be doing on a Friday. Typically, we are doing this on a Wednesday afternoon, but I'm excited about our guest here today. And I'm just gonna go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Hannah Lancaster. I'm a consultant with Bridge Innovate. We are an innovation consultant firm based out of Chattanooga, Tennessee. So we are up near Lookout Mountain. We have a great view from our studio up here. We work in consulting companies who are moving through tough challenges, whether that be leadership development, change management, designing strategies. We use human-centered design at the foundation of all of our work to better understand our customers through empathy tools and help people really move through these tough challenges to innovate for growth and good. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest today, Adam Wolcott. So Adam actually is one of our newest consultants on the team. We're super excited to have him. He has a massive entrepreneurial background. He has started a couple of different ventures, sold and moved on to others. He is now teaching at UTC. He's a lecturer of entrepreneurship there. And that is also his alma mater where he got his MBA. And yeah, we're really excited to have him here to talk about reinventing the entrepreneurship journey. And so I'm going to let him kind of take over from here and walk us through his presentation. And we'll have lots of time for Q&A because Adam knows lots of things. So you'll have lots of questions, I'm sure. So pass it over to you, Adam.
All right, great. Thanks, Hannah. Hey, good morning, everybody. I hope you're enjoying your Friday. I want to take an opportunity here, first of all, to thank you, Hannah, and thank Bridge for the opportunity to come today and really be able to talk about something that I'm really passionate about, which is entrepreneurship. Everybody that's on the call, I also want to kind of congratulate you for taking this step to deepen your knowledge and maybe get exposed to something that you don't have a lot of exposure to in the past. So whether you're here live today or you're going to be listening to this as a recording, congratulations on continuing to make investments in yourself. So over the next 15 or 20 minutes, I want to spend some time with you talking about how technology has really influenced the evolution of entrepreneurship. And I want to focus in on three key areas. So I want to spend some time talking about access to capital. So how are we finding dollars for our business now versus what it's looked like in the past? I also want to talk a little bit about networking and getting to know people. We'll draw some comparisons there. And then the third and final area that I want to talk about how technology has impacted entrepreneurship is going to revolve around our ability to reach our customers or marketing. So Hannah, while I appreciate the introduction, I do want to kind of add a couple of other things here. So personally, I was born and raised in Buffalo, New York. I came to Knoxville for school. I lived in New York for about 21 years. I came to Knoxville and then ultimately down to Chattanooga. And I'm kind of giving you that background because as we get into this conversation, I think it's going to play an important role in getting the point across. So as we talk about the impact of technology, I don't think that there's a better way to be able to understand this by telling a story. So Hannah, if we want to go ahead and move on here. So I want to start by telling a little bit of story about my grandfather. So this is my grandfather on the left-hand side of the screen. This is his brother, who eventually became his business partner. And that really good-looking guy in the middle is a very younger version of me with the great hat and the really nice jacket there. We're standing in front of a truck, one piece of equipment that my grandfather owns, and this was a long time ago. I grew up around my grandfather and I grew up around his business. His business really focuses in on site excavation, moving dirt, site planning. And he's grown this from one truck, which I'm going to tell you the story about in a second, to now they're the preferred vendor for infrastructure projects for New York State, at least on the western side of the state. So they work with site development, redoing bridges, the whole interstate system. They have over 100 pieces of equipment, all of the really cool pieces of equipment that we all want to play with, right? Bulldozers and dump trucks and excavators and cranes. And I kind of grew up in that environment and had a lot of fun just checking out these massive pieces of earth moving equipment. But several years ago, and before I even moved to Tennessee, I sat down with my grandfather and I wanted to know a little bit more about his story. I seen the results of his work, but I really wanted to know how he started. So I asked him, I call him Poppy. So I asked, I said, hey, Poppy, can you tell me a little bit about how you built this trucking company? Where did you start? What was the experience like? And he sat down and he walked me through this story. He worked 2 jobs. So he worked in a coal mine, and then he worked odd jobs in the evening and on the weekends for almost 5 years, just to save up enough money to buy his first truck. Personally, I thought that's a very impressive level of dedication to being able to raise money to start your business. He continued this story and talked to me that near the end, as he started to get enough money to buy his truck, he actually took on an apprenticeship at a tailor. So if we think about kind of the environment in New York in the 40s and the 50s, if you layer construction on the top of that, this is an industry that is very driven by who you know. My grandfather was not very well connected, second generation Italian. His parents were first generation. He didn't know a lot of people. So he took on this apprenticeship at a tailor for about 2 years. And the main purpose here was not for him to learn how to fit people with suits, as you can see by his attire here. But the main purpose was to develop his network. He felt like this was a great way for him to meet influential individuals in and around the community that he wanted to grow his business in. 2 years of putting chalk on people, measuring waists and arms seems like a tremendous commitment just to try to meet the right people to be able to start your business. And then third of all, he went on to talk to me about marketing. So about capturing his customers or his market. It is pretty unique of what he did here. When he was able to purchase his first truck, he went back and he started to haul aggregate or haul coal for the coal mine that he was actually working for. But it took him another 10 months of driving that truck around to actually get his first customer. So guys, we're thinking 5 years to raise capital, 2 years to meet the right people, another 10 months to get our first customer. All of this to just start their business, to just get off the ground. And he had, at this point, had no idea whether this was going to work or not. One of the interesting things that he did is, if you look, they always put this stainless steel S from the first truck that he bought to all of the new vehicles that they have. They always have this stainless steel S on the front of it. And the idea my grandfather had here is to try to stand out from all of the other trucking companies that were out there. So as you see this truck coming down the road, it has this big S on it. You know, as I was growing up, I would always look for the S it was coming, and then there was always a number on the side. So like this truck was like S66, and you knew that so and so was driving that truck. It was a very relationship kind of marketing play that he did, but something that really worked out and helped him build his brand in this industry. So he tells me this story, and I'm taken back on it. At that point, I didn't really have any entrepreneurial experience, but as I've gone through my own journey of starting and building businesses, I look back and my experience is so much different than what my grandfather went through. Entrepreneurship has evolved tremendously, and technology has been a huge factor in the growth and in the change of entrepreneurship, or access to the things that we need to be successful. I've even experienced a level of change over the last 10 or 15 years since I started my companies. Things that we did initially in our first startup are so much easier now because of the layering of technology. So his journey was very different than my journey. If we want to go on. This is a great analogy that I picked up years ago. This is a picture of Mount Everest here. And when I think about the journey that my grandfather went through versus the journey that I went through, and really kind of the hopes of sparking some interest in everybody who's watching this, his journey was very much like reaching the summit of Mount Everest. The amount of time, the amount of effort, and the amount of resources that were needed to get to the summit often lead to a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. This was almost life or death. And when I think back to what my grandfather went through to start his trucking company, if this didn't work, I'm not really sure how you recover from that. a tremendous amount of time and effort and focus put in over the course of 7+ years just to drive your first truck. If that doesn't work, where does it end up? Now we have access to starting a business today. We can move forward, and the research shows that entrepreneurs tend not to be successful until their second or third venture. Back when my grandfather started, he had one shot to make this work. So what I want to do is I kind of want to compare a little bit of what Poppy went through versus what we see today. So we understand that he spent 5 years working jobs to save money to buy his truck. When we look at it, we have almost immediate access to capital right now. We could spend the afternoon using resources like Angels List, EquityNet, Fundable.com, or any of the other crowdsourcing sites that are out there, and become almost immediately introduced to investors, to people who want to put money into our business. So no longer are we having to to spend 3, 4, 5 years kind of saving our quarters to be able to start our business, but we have access to capital markets at the touch of our fingertips. We can do it before lunch. Then I try to think a little bit about networks, and I think about what my grandfather went through, pinning people for suits for a couple of years just to meet the right people to help him move his business. We can use sites like LinkedIn, 10 a.m. networking, eFactor, just to name a few, and we can reach subject matter experts across the world right now. So no longer are we working nights and weekends to try to meet the right people to help us launch or grow our business, but we can jump on LinkedIn right now, and we could find subject matter experts in minutes and start a conversation with them. So as we can see here, technology not only has increased our access to capital, it's kind of shrunk the world and increased our access to other individuals who can help us start and grow our business, which I personally think is very exciting. But it has also allowed us direct access to our customers. So instead of spending 10 months driving around with a big S on the front of your truck trying to get people to ask questions, we can launch a product this afternoon, put it on sites like Etsy, Amazon, any of the suites of social media that's out there, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and we can have our product in front of customers before we go home for the weekend. What a difference. We can take a process that took 5 or 7 years, and we can get it done in 5 to 7 days. And so much of this evolution has to do with technology. And it's such a main focus. It has not only changed our ability to explore entrepreneurship, but it has also greatly reduced barriers to entrepreneurship. It's diminished costs tremendously. It's increased our access to capital. And it's shrunk the world. It's made us a much smaller world. So we can be much more intentional and impactful with the businesses that we're looking to start. Excuse me. So with that being said, as we talk about specifically how technology has reduced these barriers to entrepreneurship, I want to focus a little bit about what does that actually mean? So how has that impacted the general group of entrepreneurs? And I'd like to focus in on a couple of different areas. So I want to talk a little bit about age. I want to talk a little bit about gender, and I want to talk a little bit about diversity. And I think we can really see how not only has technology allowed us to give entrepreneurship a try without dying at the peak of Mount Everest, but it has also allowed other individuals who have not had access to the ability to grow and start their own business access. And I want to start with age. So according to a report by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 25 years ago, the average age of an entrepreneur was 45 years old. So you have the likes of Ray Kroc at 52, Stan Lee with Marvel at 39, JP Morgan, who started JP Morgan at the age of 50. To over the last 20 years, we're looking at an average age of 23. So we've seen a reduction from entrepreneurs being individuals who are 45, 50 years old to now the average age of entrepreneurs is 23. So we can see how eliminating these barriers has now expanded the group of entrepreneurs, the people who are out there actually building and starting their businesses. we were looking at some of these younger entrepreneurs like Andrew Mason from Groupon. It's 20, I think he was 27 when he started that. You've got Evan Spiegel at Snap, 22. And then you've got Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook, started this at 19. Jennifer Hyman, who has a great startup right now, started her business at 19, and her business focuses in on renting formal wear, so prom dresses, things like that, to increase the use of garments. And she started this about 8 years ago, when she was still in high school, and is doing tremendous. But I also want to transition and talk about businesses that are now owned by women. And according to a report from Forbes, in 2019, 40% of newly registered businesses were registered and were identified as female owned, were registered by women, which I think is a great movement. And there's even some countries out there who are reporting higher business ownership by women than men. This is such a great move in the direction, and it not only diversifies the group of people who identify as entrepreneurs, but what it does is it also forces innovation from a diverse group of people. So it's not just old crusty guys who are starting businesses anymore, right? This is starting to get rounded out. But I want to take this a step further, because I think it's an even better piece when we start talking about minority-owned businesses. The U.S. Senate committee put out a report actually this year that shows that over 50% of newly registered businesses were registered by minorities. What a great movement that we're seeing! And if you look all the way back, the driver of this, the real push of this, is that technology has taken down these barriers. Technology has removed a lot of the challenges, and it has opened this up to a younger, more diverse group of entrepreneurs. And for me, that's incredibly exciting, because it causes us all to look differently at how we're solving problems, at how we're operating in a market. And it creates just such a great level of diversity around solving problems. And it doesn't have to just be age, doesn't have to be race, and it doesn't necessarily have to be gender, but now we're working with teams across the world to solve problems. So no longer are we looking at the people who are next door, or the people in our community trying to solve problems, but now we can be solving problems with people on the other side of the world. So in conclusion, I'd like to talk about, so technology has not only removed many of the barriers that my grandfather faced when he was starting his business, but it has also increased diversity and overall impact on societies. So my goal today is really to show you that there's not a better time for you to go out, for us to go out and explore an idea. No longer is this the march to the top of Mount Everest. Go out. If you have an idea, if you have a problem and a solution to a problem, there's no better time than today for you to go out and start to test this, start to try it out a little bit, get a feel for what the market looks like. And you can do this with very little risk. You've got access to capital, you have access to a diverse group of people through your networks, and you have really most of your market at your fingertips. There's really, outside of some intrinsic motivation, if you want to go out and start your business, I would challenge you to say that there's no better time to do that than right now. Cool. That's what I have, Hannah.
That's great. So we're going to open it up for questions. I know I have a bunch of questions, but I would like to open it up to our guests, our attendees. So in the chat box or in the Q&A box at your little toolbar, go ahead and put in any questions you have. I can go ahead and start with one of mine. So, what you think about it impacting societies in your research, what have you seen of the impact on communities, like people taking this? I mean, there's so much ownership involved in that, and like pride, and what have you seen really in the research around the impact on communities and sort of like society at large in terms of like relationships and like the way people operate within their businesses? And
Yeah, there's been great research that has really focused in on and really maybe some developing countries like Nigeria and Ghana are two that we focused in on. And over 45% of the jobs in those areas are created by entrepreneurs, by shoemakers, people who are working on, creating clean water and sustainable energy in those areas. So, we're thinking almost half of the employment in developing areas is created by this innovation that's spurred by entrepreneurship.
Yeah, that's very amazing. I mean, and I love this whole movement too, speaking of technology, of like shopping small and like making sure that people know where, like, even on Amazon now, like people love finding like when you're actually shopping from a real shop, and like a real little mom and pop store, and they just happen to be selling on Amazon. And I think that, yeah, there's so much pride even as like consumers, working into that realm as well. So again, if there's any questions from our participants, go ahead and pop them into the chat or into the Q&A boxes. And Adam, what is sort of in your experience of starting businesses and working in entrepreneurship and lecturing and undergrad students, what are some of your top 3 things that you would recommend people do? Like if they have an idea, like where do they go from there?
Yeah, this is great. The first thing that I always recommend, and something that is often overlooked, is I think the first step, if you have an idea, is to pause for a second and look intrinsically, like look at who you are, and make sure that the motivations that you have for pursuing this business are in line with who you are as an individual. I always like to use the example that if you have an idea that's going to require 100 hours a week of your time and probably 10 years of your life, but when you look in the mirror, you're like, hey, I just really want to make enough money to do this and spend the least amount of time that I can on my business, right? Because that's one of the great things about entrepreneurship now, is it doesn't have to be the 100-hour week. So the first thing would be to look at who you are, know who you are, bring your skill set to the table, and then from there, see if that matches your idea. And if it doesn't, I would really challenge you to think about whether that's something that you want to commit the next 5 or 10 years of your life to. That's number one. The second thing would be really to do some market research. There's a great book out there. I use it in one of my classes. It's called Just Start, and it really kind of walks you through this iterative process of designing a product. It's got a little bit design thinking thought on the front end of it, getting to the prototype stage, taking steps forward, small steps forward, and learning from all of those things. And then if that checks out, and you can do this in a very small amount of time. My third thing was, if that checks out, man, I say run with it. Go and see what you can do. Don't bet more than you're willing to lose. Whether that's time, whether that's money, whether that's reputational risk. Don't bet more than you're willing to lose. But go chase your idea. If it matches who you are, and you think that there's a great market that's out there for it, I say go for it.
Yeah, that's really, really great advice. I love that. We do have a question here. So from Al Bob, considering that it generally takes a few ventures to land a successful venture, what mental approach should entrepreneurs take for their first venture?
Yeah, I definitely don't think you want to frame your first venture as like, hey, this is going to go to the scrapyard. I think that you want to make all of the right decisions that you think about that point, and use your mentors and use your network to help kind of guide you on that. But I think that the best thing would be is if that doesn't work, and anybody who's kind of gone through my class or heard me talk, I mean, my first venture was an absolute failure, embarrassingly bad. But it's about framing that as a learning opportunity, a very tough learning opportunity at that, but don't make those mistakes again. And how can you use that first venture and those decisions as a way to increase your success rate on number 2 or number 3 or wherever you end up? I wish that your first venture is the most profitable and most engaging thing that you do, but if it doesn't work, know that that's okay. Other people have shared that experiences, and use the learnings to propel you forward into number 2 and number 3. That's a great question.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I mean, the value of failure is unparalleled, really. I think it's always more beneficial for that first one not to work, and then you get to kind of learn and figure it out as you go. I love that. So do we have any more questions? Anything else come into mind for anyone? I'm going to go ahead and pop over to the next slide so you can know how to get in touch with Adam. So Adam is a wealth of knowledge and will help answer lots of questions, I'm sure, if anyone has any that are sort of popping up along the way. So you can get in touch with him at adam-wolcott@utc.edu. You can also find him on LinkedIn at Adam Wolcott. So make sure you can screenshot this if you want to get in touch, copy and paste, whatever it is. And yeah, we also at Bridge Innovate work a lot with helping people craft ideas and solutions for their ideas. So if you do have a big idea and you want to figure out how to make it work, feel free to contact me or Adam, and we can kind of talk through how Bridge might be support to you as well. And there's tons and tons of resources out there. So again, if anyone, Adam, do you have any more resources to kind of share? Like if you or had an idea and different things that you read or people that you connected with that you thought were really important in your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially locally. I think the company lab is a great resource here in Chattanooga for, kind of early stage mentoring. The Small Business Development Center on Cherokee downtown, another great resource, free resources to individuals to use. And at UTC, I'm a little biased there, but we do also have a Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, which has some great mentors and some great programs to be able to support both the early stage idea development, but also the growth of your business. So if you already have a business that's moving, but you think that there may be some opportunities to accelerate the growth of it, that would be another great resource for you to engage with. Chattanooga is a wealth of support for the entrepreneur. There's so many things that are around there, and I would just encourage people to use as many resources and gain as many insights, but then sit down and really craft what they want based on the feedback that they're getting. At the end of the day, it is your business.
Right. And this made me think, what kind of advice do you have for somebody who maybe is like deep in the trenches of being an entrepreneur and they kind of realize like, oh, I need to reevaluate what this looks like for me, so like you maybe are a little bit further along and you're like, okay, I'm giving way too many hours to this. I need to start finding better work-life balance, or I have these other ventures I want to start looking at. Like what kind of advice do you have for those people?
Yeah, at least from my experiences, one of the most difficult things that I've ever had to do is the transition from working in my business to working on my business. So this transition from being in the trenches, as you talked about, to starting to look 2, 3, 5 years down the line, because you've built this from nothing. So this is very personal, right? It's almost like raising a baby, right? Like this is my kid, like I don't want to let it go. But at some point you have to bring other people in to kind of manage the trenches, if you will, to allow you to raise your eyes a little bit and look and see, hey, where do I want to take this company in 3 to 5 years? And by doing that, it not only frees you up a little bit to plan more strategically for your startup or your early stage company, but what it also does is it allows you to create a little bit of a work-life balance. Now you have some people who are taking care of the day-to-day. You can breathe a little bit, take some time off, because, getting a startup off the ground is a very difficult, time-consuming, and really mentally taxing event. So if you can kind of pull away from that a little bit, I think it's helpful. But that usually consists of you replacing you in the business with somebody else to be able to run that, and that's a difficult thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's been so wonderful having you, Adam. This has been so great. If you want to hear more from Adam, make sure that you get in touch with him. We have a couple more events coming up soon. We have Virginia Murphy on November 9th, talking about faith and failure and how she found success. She is an African-American entrepreneur out of Atlanta, working in the waste water system services, and she has an amazing story. She's going to be a really incredible guest. If you are interested in learning more about Bridge, you can find us at bridgeinnovate.com. And I am looking forward to hearing from all of you. If you have missed this episode, or if you had to pop off early, or if you need to leave and you want to share this with someone else, we record these and post them on our YouTube, and you'll receive it in your email after. So have a great rest of your Friday, a great weekend, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, everyone.